He stuck his finger in the end of your what?
Howdy, everyone. Robert Smith here, welcoming you to this preview episode of my upcoming podcast. It's Support Your Local Podcast, and you may be asking, what exactly is that? Well, when explaining things, I like to go to the tried and true who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes how. So let's start with who. Hi, again, I'm Robert T. Smith. For those that know me, you may know me as your friendly neighborhood HR guy. You may know me predominantly as your friendly neighborhood pro shop owner and bowler. You may just know me as your friend Robert. If you don't know me, wow, awesome. That means that somebody outside of my circle is actually listening to this, and that's awesome. Welcome. I'm glad to have you here. I'm Robert Smith, husband, father, as I said, bowler, wrestler, aficionado, movie buff, pretty decent guy from what I've heard. I've heard some things. But I will be your host for this podcast. And that kind of leads us into the what. What is this podcast? Well, as I said before, this is Support Your Local Podcast. It's a podcast brought to you by me. Future plans, maybe something a little bit bigger, maybe a series of podcasts coming from it. But for right now, in this first run, we will be doing the Movies by Minutes treatment. Those that are not familiar with that series of podcasts in that group, please check out moviesbyminutes.com and see all the hundreds of movies that podcasters have broken down either by minutes or by chapters, depending on the movie. For this one, we will be breaking it down by chapter. There'll be 16 episodes going over the entire movie of the 1969 Western comedy classic starring James Garner, Support Your Local Sheriff. Those that have seen it or are old enough to know that it exists, you know that it's a zany cornball comedy, taking a little bit of a spoof on the classic westerns that were of the 40s and 50s. This was in 1969, so it's around the time that things were starting to die off in the western and counterculture starting to hit. For those that have never seen it, as of this recording, it is free on Pluto. I believe it's also free on YouTube. I really highly recommend going to see the movie, even if you don't like old school movies or things like that. I'm sure you'll find something that you'll enjoy, and it gives you something to watch along with me as we're going through the episodes. So, going into when, we hope to have all of our episodes releasing weekly. As I said, this will be a 16 episode series. We may, in the future, with other projects, look at tweaking that a little bit, either more often or less often, depending on what time permits. But for at least this first run for Support Your Local Sheriff, we'll be doing this weekly and dropping wherever that may be. And that leads us right into where. Where can I find this podcast? So hopefully, us in all of your favorite podcatchers, whether it be Apple, Google, Spotify, wherever that may be. We hope to have that on the RSS feed available to you again on a weekly basis. We are also going to launch this on our YouTube channel. So look for Support Your Local Podcast. You'll find us there. We'll have all the episodes there. And that's also where, if you like and follow us, especially on social medias as well, we'll be on Facebook, Support Your Local Podcast, Instagram, same thing. You'll be able to stay up to date with all the information that's coming out, any bonus episodes that we may release, any of the regular episodes that we release, all the information pertaining to the podcast. That's the best way to stay in touch and know where you can find everything. So why? I guess that's the good question that is on everybody's mind. Why do this? Short answer, because I said I would. Anybody that knows me knows this past year has been a lot of life thrown at me, and one of the promises that I made to myself is that I was going to start checking off bucket list items that have been on my mind, have been things that I've wanted to do for years and years and years and years, and just have never allowed myself to take the risk and take the plunge and make that happen. So one of the things I have always wanted to do for probably a decade now is make a podcast. Anybody that knows me knows that podcasts are a big part of my life. I am always listening to some sort of podcast almost all the time that I'm awake. It's just something that allows me to focus. It gets my mind off of things. It gives me great entertainment. So podcasts have always been a big part of things. So some of the things I listen to, again, the movies by minutes. Uh, Genre of podcast, being a huge movie buff that I am, I love listening to people break down movies that I think I know a lot of and just overdrive with the information and the fun facts and the trivia and the comedy that can be brought from that. I also listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a big wrestling buff. Stay tuned for that. But so yeah, so podcasts were always a big thing for me, and I always said that I would want to make one. So um, good, bad, indifferent, whether I have just one listener, myself, or hi mom, I'm sure you're listening, or I have 1,000 listeners, which would be amazing. I'm going to put this out into the world. It will exist. I recently wrote a book because again, that was a bucket list item for me was to become an author. And good, bad, or indifferent, whether one person buys it, thank you, Steve, or several people buy it, it's going to exist in the world so that at the end of the day, I can say I did it and I can have that pride in saying I'm an author. In this case, I get to say that I did it. I'm a podcaster. Whether I'm any good, we'll find out. I have some doubts. I have some questions on that, but we'll see how that goes. So yeah, so that's the major why. Hopefully you're along for this ride with me. Hopefully you enjoy it. Hopefully you get some entertainment out of it. That's the ultimate goal is to make some entertainment for somebody out there that needs it. And like I said, sometimes how. So, like I said before, the biggest thing that you can do to make this happen and to support this and to make sure that this bucket list item does get checked off and continues is to support. Coincidentally, support your local podcast. That obviously is the name of it, but it does have that double meaning to where hopefully in the future this can grow and become something bigger and better to where it's a movement of people helping out and supporting their local podcasters who are taking their time, their energy, their creative juices, and putting some free entertainment out into the world for you to listen to. So, the biggest thing that you can do to support your local podcast is to follow them on their social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Subscribe, follow, like, share. If they have a YouTube channel, which we do, subscribe to it. Go on your podcatcher and subscribe to them, leave a comment, leave a ranking, or uh, whatever type of system that they use to rank podcasts on that podcatcher. That's huge. That's what gets you moved up in the rankings. That's what gets you noticed by more people. That's what allows you to grow and become bigger and better and make this a fruitful experience. Comments, I'm definitely looking for feedback. So if you ever have any comments or if you ever want to join in, please hit us up on social media. Let me know. I love interacting with everybody and letting them know what's going on. But until then, I don't want to take any more of your time. I just wanted to throw this episode out there to kind of give you an idea of what to expect. We'll be launching very, very soon. All the pre-work is done. So I hopefully will be sitting down with headphones back on, hitting the record button and getting those episodes out to you as soon as I can. But until then, I appreciate your time as always. Know that I love you, and hopefully we'll hear from everybody very, very, very soon. Take care, everybody. And meantime, remember, support your local podcast.
He stuck his finger in the end of your what?